Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and to be honest, this is one of the trickiest reviews I've made this year. I've been using the Pixel 4 XL as my day-to-day phone for the past few weeks. I've properly switched to it, but I'm not sure for how much longer. And phones like the Note 10 Plus, OnePlus 7T Pro, and iPhone 11 Pro are all very tempting alternatives. So I showed this to a few of my friends recently, and one of them picked it up, and the first thing they said was how it reminded them of like a mid-range Nokia phone, and since then, I can't really unsee it. That's not a terrible thing, of course, and I do quite like the simple design on the back, even if it does remind me of a Panda a little bit, and I appreciate having stereo speakers and IP68 water resistance. But it just doesn't look or feel like a phone that costs £830 or $900. And that's the base price with just 64 gigs of storage. Add another 100 if you want 128 gigs. To be fair, Apple is the same. They also offer 64 gigs of base storage, but that's no excuse. That's not a good thing either, and we shouldn't be competing for who offers the stingiest specs, you know? Honestly, I'm not that bothered at all by the Pixel 4 having 6 gigs of RAM rather than 8, or a Snapdragon 855 rather than the newer 855 Plus, but when it also comes with a paltry 64 gigs of storage, a 3700 mAh battery that barely gets me through a full day, 18-watt charging, which is the same speed as the original Pixel, no ultra-wide lens, which I know a lot of people really want, no 5G option, no 4K video on the front camera, no 4K 60 on the back, a 90Hz screen that only works sometimes and if your brightness isn't lower than 75%, it just feels like Google have concentrated on a few areas, like the new radar motion sensing, the camera, and of course Android 10, but everything else was just an afterthought. Don't get me wrong though, while that was a bit of a rant, the Pixel 4 XL is still a very good phone. It runs pure vanilla Android 10, and with new gestures, dark mode, and customization, it's lovely to use. And paired with a 90Hz screen, it does feel fast and responsive. There's no fingerprint reader here, it's all about face unlocking. So this fancy radar motion sensing tech is based on Google's Project Soli, which is kind of cool. And I really do like the seamless face unlocking. No swipes, button presses, or anything. And because it has an IR scanner as well, it works just as well at night. It really is one of my favorite features, but there are a couple of little problems. You've probably heard that you can unlock it with your eyes closed, so bring it up. Yeah, and we're in. I don't think it's really a big deal unless maybe you're on the bus or the train or something, someone steals your phone, puts it in front of your face and then unlocks it, although then the screen may wake you up, or if you have a disgruntled partner who wants to check your messages. I don't think it's a big deal. What is more frustrating though is most banking and finance apps aren't actually compatible with this face unlocking. So unlike most other phones where you could maybe use your fingerprint reader to log into PayPal or your bank, with this, because it doesn't recognize the face unlocking, you have to enter your traditional password or your code, which is a bit frustrating. Beyond my initial hands-on video, I've never used gestures to swipe between songs, I've never used the Pokemon wallpaper, it's all a bit gimmicky. And the trade-off is we have this big forehead bezel. I mean, I'm not too fussed on the bezels, but next to pretty much any other flagship phone with edge-to-edge screens or tiny notches, it does look a bit old-fashioned. The 6.3-inch Quad HD Plus screen does look good though. It's OLED, supports HDR10+, and using the adaptive display mode, I think it offers a good balance between color accuracy and vibrancy. My only complaint though is it's not the brightest, peaking at just 444 nits. The Note 10 Plus goes up to 686, and OnePlus 7T is 743 for comparison. But what I'd like to do to compensate for that is maybe just keep the average brightness a bit higher, keep the brightness slider a little bit higher so it's still punchy, still usable outside. But the problem with that is I'm so worried about the battery life on the Pixel 4 XL. I just feel like I need to keep it dim just so that this actually lasts me to the end of the day. The problem is a Quad HD Plus resolution, a 90Hz refresh rate, and a relatively small 3700 mAh battery just don't add up. And so the battery life is the single biggest problem I have with the Pixel 4 XL. Now I'm not sure if it's AI trickery going on behind the scenes or I've just subconsciously started rationing my use, but I found it's got a little bit better since I've started using it, but it's still a worry. And unless you're able to regularly charge your phone during the day, you'll be lucky to get to 9 PM at night before it runs out of juice. I'm getting an average of about 5.5 hours of screen on time, so yes, technically it can get you through a full day as long as you're not playing games or pushing it too hard. And while there are some things you can do to improve it, turning off the motion sensing radar, turning off the 90Hz smooth display will all make a bit of a difference, although you can't actually lower the resolution. So you can tweak a few things to maybe get an extra hour out of it, but as a power user, it's just not good enough for me. The other aspect is charging, and while I do appreciate it supports wireless charging, although only up to 10 watts if you're using Google's own charging stand, otherwise it's just 5 watts, with other flagship phones offering 30, 40, 65 watt charging, the Pixel 4's 18 watt charger, while the same as the iPhone 11 Pro, takes a good hour and a half to fully charge. I mean, the average battery life wouldn't be so bad if I could just top it up for 15 minutes and get another half day out of it, but again, it's just falling behind the competition. I think for most people, myself included, that the Pixel's never really been about raw specs or performance. There's two things that keep me coming back to this. It's the software and the camera. Being Google's phone, it'll be the first to get new updates, features, and security fixes. So when Android 11 comes out, you'll get it straight away. But I always look forward to seeing what their camera can do. I think Google proved that it's not all about megapixels and number of lenses, it's about software, processing, machine learning. For the past couple of years now, they've had one of, if not the best camera on any phone. So this year they've added a second lens, a 2x telephoto zoom, live HDR in the viewfinder, so now you can see what the photo will look like in real time. So whereas before you'd have to take it and then wait a few seconds to process and then check it in the gallery, now you can see it in real time. And it's also allowed Google to give us dual exposure controls. We now get two sliders that control brightness and shadows, which you can adjust in real time, something you'd normally have to do in an editor like Lightroom afterwards. So we now get a dual lens setup, with that second lens offering a 2x optical zoom, which is a nice extra, but there's more to it. Firstly, we now get super res zoom, which means you can actually pinch right into 8x, and while it's not lossless, it's still a good deal sharper than other phones. The extra lens also helps make portrait photos look more realistic, as we get different levels of depth. We also get improved night sight 2.0, and Google have done a good job at making the white balance look more natural, across all camera modes, but it's most obvious in low light, where the colors look a lot more true to life. Night sight is still very impressive, but other phones, including the iPhone 11 with their new night modes, have come a long way this year, and give the Pixel a run for its money. And finally, we have the new Astrophotography mode. In a word, it's magic. When it's dark enough and stable enough, because you can't actually use this handheld, Astro mode will kick in, and it takes up to 16 different 15-second long exposures. The benefit is you get very little noise and no star trails, which is something you get with normal long exposures. However, this does take up to 4 minutes, which means it's not the most practical. But then just look at the results. The photos are absolutely stunning, and with a bit of Lightroom editing, it's amazing how much detail it captures. Now I will admit I'm a bit of a space nerd, so I've had a lot of fun with the Astro mode on the Pixel, but I reckon for most people, it's kind of just like a one-off party trick. It's kind of cool, it's nice that you have the option to do it, but given that you need about 4 minutes to take the picture and you can't use it handheld, you have to either like set a timer and prop it down or lean it against something or use a tripod, it's not the most practical, but for me, I love it. So the Pixel's camera is very impressive and a great reason to buy it, but I think the Note 10 Plus and the iPhone 11 Pro do trade blows with it, and the lack of an ultra-wide lens, I must admit, is a bit disappointing. So on the one hand, I love the camera and the software, but on the other hand, see what I did there? It's just too expensive, the battery life isn't good enough, and by itself in a vacuum, it's a fantastic phone, but when you consider all the competition out there, it makes it hard to recommend. And actually, if you do want to find out more about all the other flagship phones that you may want to consider buying, click at the top right or on the little card thing that pops out and check out my full flagship phone 2019 buying guide. But what do you reckon? Would you consider one of these? And if not, why not? And what would you like to see on the Google Pixel 5 that may tempt you to upgrade? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. And if you want to see more from me, then don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button below. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.